You everybody for joining me today. My business partner is also with us for a brief time. Tony Penn has joined us. I will be able to send out a transcript and a copy of this afterwards if you guys are interested in it. Let me start by thanking you and then telling you I'm not a financial expert. I'm a business coach. And I'm going to go through this very confusing array of opportunities that are for business owners out there that initially I found very confusing. I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible, but understand that I am not an expert, and I'm offering you business advice, not financial advice. If you'd like to talk further about any of this offline with me, more than happy to speak to anybody. My phone number will be at the end of this presentation. Feel free to reach out to me, and my email. I'd love to be able to talk with all of you. So let's begin by talking about all the different opportunities that are available to business owners that in the end benefit their employee base that are out in the world right now during the COVID-19 pandemic that we're all suffering from. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of background. Here are a few facts. Following the declaration of the emergency, the SBA got together, they launched the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Assistance Program. That was the first one to come out, all administered through the SBA and through all 50 states. And then on March the 27th, President Trump signed the CARES Act, which offered a very large stimulus bill to the economy, $2 trillion. I'm sure you've all heard about that. $356 billion was set aside for small businesses to cover their payroll and overhead expenses. We're going to get into some details regarding all that shortly. The CARES Act primarily is built around a Paycheck Protection Program. And this loan program, the beauty of it is it's a forgivable loan. And it's up to $10 million. And as long as you provide the documentation that whichever SBA lender you go with, as long as you provide that documentation, this loan is going to be forgiven, which is great for you. It's great for your associates, your employees, your team that's working with you. In the end, we've got to keep this great economy chugging along. And the more people we can hang on to in our organizations, the better, because we don't want to be starting too fresh when things get rocking again. So you don't want to go out and have to hire a bunch of new employees. So anything we can do as business owners to hang on to our current team of employees, we want to be able to do. And the PPP and to some degree the EIDL loans will allow you to do that. So you can apply for either or both. It doesn't matter. You get to choose. There's a window of time that you can make the final decision. If you qualify for both, you can accept either, or you can accept both. But I would encourage you to apply for as many of these loans as possible. There's nothing derogatory that's going to go against your credit for applying either one of them. So you've got nothing to lose. So whichever ones you feel you want to apply for, one, the other, or both. Once I get through this presentation, I think you'll see that, at least to me, which one is a superior opportunity. So what's the differences? Well, the EIDL loan, first of all, it's through SBA, as both are. The maximum loan amount is $2 million. And a nice little caveat to this is you can apply for a $10,000 emergency grant that will be rolled into that loan if you do get approved. If you don't get approved and you've received that $10,000 emergency grant, well, that $10,000 gets forgiven. It's a separate application process. Your bank or banks have this separate application available. So it's trying to get you $10,000 quickly while the approval process for the larger loan goes through the steps that it has to go through, and the SBA is never really fast on anything, but they're really chugging along trying to get these things done. I've got some success stories to share with you in a few minutes with some of my other clients. The interest rate on the EIDL loan is capped at 3.75%, capped at 3.75% for a normal business, for-profit business, 2.75% for a nonprofit business. It's a 30-year amortization, and your first loan payment will be due 1 year. That's a really nice deal. 1 year after the origination date. However, interest is being accrued during that deferment period. Now, I'm going to pause just 1 second. We're going to do some Q&A at the end, but I want to call your attention to the chat button, which is probably at the bottom of your screen. As I'm moving along here, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to hit that chat screen. It'll give me a notification, and we'll be able to take your questions along the way. What can you use the EIDL loan for? Well, it's for operating your business. However, they are going to put a lien on some property or on some assets for you. You are going to have to personally guarantee this loan for more than $200,000. Under $200,000, there's no personal guarantee. So if you're only applying for a couple $100,000 or less, there's no personal guarantee that has to be signed for. That's a bonus for these loans. But if it's more than $200,000, which in most cases businesses are applying for more than that, it's 20% of the loan will need to be underwritten. Now, if you've got partnerships, you've got partners in your business, each business owner can take a percentage of that guarantee. The downside to the EIDL is that it's not one of the forgivable aspects of the loan. I talked about the $10,000 emergency grant. That is forgivable if you do not get approved for the EIDL loan. But the EIDL loan is a 30-year commitment. Now, the nice thing is that if you have an existing SBA loan, you can roll that into and refinance your SBA loan under the EIDL loan. So that'd be a really nice thing to do if you got an existing SBA loan. Do you have to have filed your taxes in order to qualify? No, but they may ask for a 4506T approval form for you so that they can look at your tax history. Now, the approval processes have been taking 2 to 3 weeks, more on the 3-week side than the 2-week side. And once you get approved, typically it's a 5-day funding period. Can you apply now? You betcha. I'm going to give you a bunch of resources here in a minute because they just got dramatically expanded just yesterday into a whole nother line of banks that overnight I've seen folks getting action on their loan applications to this expanded group of banks. So it's non-typical SBA lenders. So that's awesome. They're really trying to pump this money into the economy. So you can apply now. The funds are starting to flow. I think they've gotten $100 billion of this money out so far. So for just the EIDL, there's another, the 375 million, 65 billion that is set aside for the PPP. We're going to talk about that in a second. So what kind of businesses can get approved for the EIDL loan? So it's, they're going to go by SBA standards, but it's typically what is qualified under SBA as a small business. So that's less than 500 employees, under $35 million in revenue. Now, if you've got some affiliates in your business, your affiliates within that business are going to count towards the head count and the annual revenue. So if you've got multiple EINs associated with your business, that's going to get rolled into that. So That includes your employee headcount and your annual revenue. Now, I talked about earlier, I'm going to say it one more time. There's a $10,000 emergency grant that's out there and available. It's a separate application process. You need to get with your bank, and your most likely target to get this whole process started for you is with your bank, your local bank, your business bank that you're doing business with, whether it's BOA, Chase, whomever, Citizens, whoever it may be. That's the best place to start. However, let me encourage you, some of these big banks are a little slower than the smaller banks. If they're, and I'm going to give you again a link in this document for the SBA, and they'll list every bank that's participating in this. If there's another smaller bank that you want to get an application in, there's no penalty for doing that. So you can get this $10,000 emergency grant, separate application. And you can use that for whatever you want to use it for, but it's typically to give you that infusion of cash to keep you running until the bigger money rolls in. You're not required to repay this advance, even if you're subsequently denied the bigger loan. And the loan amount currently goes up to $2 million for the EIDL loans. I sent everybody a link to this PowerPoint. The links are in that PowerPoint. So right here, there is the first link I'm going to share with you, that if you just go and download these docs, you'll have access to that. But it's the SBA's website to give you more details on this. So one last time, eligibility. This has been the big question. This is the fourth time I've made this presentation. The big question is, am I eligible? For the EIDL, you are eligible if you've got less than 500 employees, you fall under the small business qualifications under the SBA rules. You are one of the industries that is experiencing some of the economic injury that's occurring during the COVID-19 pandemic. Certain SBA provisions are being waived during all this, so that's great. Once again, anything in the way of a loan under $200,000 does not require you to undersign or guarantee that loan. And you just have to have been in business prior to January the 31st of 2020. And that's EIDL. I'm going to pause just 1 second. Any questions from anybody? All right. Here's the one that I really like a lot, and all my clients that I've been working with over the past few weeks feel that this is a really good fit for their needs for a lot of reasons, and I'm going to go through that. The Paycheck Protection Program. It's a new program. It just came out with the CARES Act, so it's just a couple weeks old. It is, again, underwritten by the SBA. It's administered through the SBA departments of all the different banks. The interest rate is slightly higher. It's 4% versus the 3.75% for the EIDL loan, but 4% is pretty cheap money. However, it's not a 30-year loan. It's just a 10-year loan. But that's not much to worry about, honestly, when I get to this next part. The first payment is due in 6 months from the loan origination. Again, interest is being accrued during that deferment period. So it's a 10-year, 4% loan. Now I've got a question here, and I'm going to go to it real quick. What is the minimum loan amount for EIDL? It can be as low as $5,000. Good question. Thanks, John. You could probably get less than that, but I don't know why most companies will want to get less than that. So anyway, 4%, 10 years, 6 months to make the first payment. The maximum amount of the loan, this is one of the beauties of this program. It's 2.5 times the average monthly payroll cost over the preceding 12 months of the origination date. 2.5 times your monthly payroll cost over the preceding 12 months. Now, Vaughn, I'm a seasonal business. They've taken that into account. If you're a seasonal business, you get to pick your season. And if you're a seasonal business that had most of your employees between February and June of last year, then you take that season. If you're a summer season, you can calculate March to June to calculate your average payroll. So you get to pick which way you want to go if you're a seasonal business. But they're basically just going to look at your head count for the previous year. They're going to multiply that times 2.5 times, and that's going to be what you qualify in the way of the loan. Now, if you had taken out an EIDL loan between February the 15th and June the 30th of 2020, and you subsequently get approved for the PPP, well, you'll want to refinance that EIDL into the PPP, and you can do that. You can roll the EIDL into a PPP for this next obvious reason, which, well, hold on, 2 more obvious reasons. Same standards as the EIDL, less than 500 employees, small business, less than $35 million. But here's the great thing. Sole proprietorships, independent contractors, self-employed individuals, they're all eligible for the PPP. As of today, you can start getting your application in for that if you're a sole proprietor, independent contractor, or you're self-employed. That's awesome. Now, let me also say, and I'm going to say it again a couple more times, most people don't believe me, but I took this right off the SBA rules. As far as your payroll cost, let's say you're an employer that you're in the construction business and you employ a lot of subcontractors during the course of your business. When you're calculating your payroll and multiplying that times 2.5%, any subs or independent contractors that you've had working for you during that period of time, that goes in as part of your calculation of payroll. So it's your actual your fixed payroll within your organization, and any subs or independent contractors you've had that you employed in the past during that period of time, that can all be, they're going to average it per month 2.5 times, and that's what your loan's going to be. So it gives you the opportunity to keep your subs working as well if you're a business that requires that. What else goes into that calculation? Well, it is commissions, it's tips, it's health insurance, it's state and local taxes. FICA is not part of this calculation. So not only is it your payroll, it's your taxes and benefits that get calculated as part of your payroll cost as well. And again, you can include your payments to sole proprietors, independent contractors, anybody self-employed that has been working for you that's not on your permanent fixed payroll as part of your calculation under $100,000. They cap it out. They'll pay up to $100,000, but not past $100,000 for each individual. So it's each individual, whether it's you, whether it's an executive or a manager on your team, a sole proprietor, a contractor. It caps at $100,000, but they'll give you up to credit in your calculation up to $100,000. Now, if you happen to be in the restaurant industry, the food services industry, the nice thing when they're doing this calculation for the PPP, if you happen to own a chain, they're looking at the head count and the annual revenue on a per location business. So if, and I'm sure Cheesecake Factory's not on here, but if you were Cheesecake Factory and you were doing, $500 million in business and had 1,000 employees, that would, on the surface of things, eliminate you. However, what they've done is they're going to look at every single cheesecake and factory and be able to let you slice that up to be able to qualify for the PPP. They want restaurants to stay in business, which we all want them to as well. So hold on, we've got another question. Oh, Tony has a quick update on the PPP in regards to restaurants. So Tony, take it away, sir.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I wanted to get it in because I had to go on another meeting here pretty soon. But and it's not just restaurants; it's retail too. There's groups. The group that I work with, the Independent Restaurant Council or Coalition, is working on trying to get that June 30th date extended, because by the time restaurants are able to actually get to even close to full speed, it's going to be within that 8-week period. So June 30th isn't going to work for a lot of restaurant and retail. So I don't know if that applies to anybody on this call, but that date, they're looking to move that date out, and I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. So just wanted to give you an update on that.
Yeah, it's thank you, Tony. That's really good news. Certainly, retail and restaurants are the industries that are going to be the hardest hit. Ari, let me tell you in just a second why you want to refi that EIDL into a PPP. On the surface, until I get to this next part, it may or may not be right for you, but let me share that with you, because the PPP is a forgivable loan as long as you meet the qualifications in a few months when they ask for proof that you have in fact kept 90% of your employees, 90% of your headcount, FTEs, during these next few months. They're going to ask for documentation, your payroll records. They're going to compare the headcount to the headcount. And as long as you're at 90%, the PPP goes away. It's forgiven. That loan disappears. So that might be one reason why you want to look at refinancing the EIDL into a PPP, because you get the cash, keep your employees. And by the way, I've not seen a rule anywhere that it has to be the same employees. So if you've laid some folks off, they're not available to you when you're ready to get back in business, or get these folks back when you get your money to hire them back. If you can't get them back, as long as you get the bodies back in there that add up to your head count, that loan is going to be forgiven. There's no collateral required with this loan. You can use it for your insurance. You can use it for your rent. You can use it for, again, your payroll cost, utility payments. This PPP loan is you can use the money to keep yourself up and running. And the beauty of the PPP, no personal guarantee.
Hey, Vaughn. Sorry. Can I add something real quick to that?
Please.
It is stipulated that 75% of that PPP has to go to payroll.
Yes.
And 25% it can be used for rent, utilities, and business-related items. I just want to.
Thanks for clarifying that. You're absolutely right, Tony. Thanks. Thanks for that. And so let's talk about the loan forgiveness. It's calculated as the amount spent by you, the business owner, during an 8-week period after the origination date of the loan. The interest payment on any mortgage accrued prior to February the 15th, payment of rent on any lease enforced prior to February the 15th, that all goes in there. Any utility bills go in there. So all of this gets to be calculated in your loan amount and can be forgiven as long as you meet the criteria. Now, what if I don't meet the criteria? What reduces the amount that can be forgiven? So if you fail to maintain the average number of full-time equivalents versus that period from the year before, and that's February 15th to June the 30th, or January 1 through February 29th, whichever one you select as the borrower, as long as you maintain that head count, the loan's going to be forgiven. If the amount forgiven can also be reduced to the extent that the compensation. Somebody's got, if everybody keep their themselves muted, that'd be great. The amount forgiven is reduced to the extent that if you pay yourself more than $100,000, or they're going to take that off the loan, that's going to go into the 10-year loan that's part of the PPP.
That's okay.
And then reductions to the number of employees, if you reduce the number of employees, if everybody could please mute their mics, that'd be great. So reductions in the number of employees or compensation between February the 15th and 30 days after the enactment of the CARES Act will generally be ignored. So they're saying, hey, this thing started hitting the fan about the 15th of February. If you'd started reducing prior to that, we're going to kind of ignore that as long as you reverse it by June. You do not have to have applied for or done your taxes for the most part. Now, some lenders may require that, or they may require that you disclose your taxes from prior years. Now, how long is this application going to take? Well, it was first advertised to get it done in 2 to 3 weeks. There was a holdup as of last Thursday night when the banks and the government started fighting with each other a little bit because the government changed some of the requirements on this loan. It's back and flowing. I know people over the weekend that got approved. Let's see, we've got a question here. Lyle. Lyle Pearson. Lyle, let me send this out, who's with Rainstar Capital Group. Lyle can help with the processing of the bridge financing. So Lyle, I will send your contact information out and make sure everybody on this call gets it. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I just added we can do not only the bridge to get the SBA, but the SBA as well. So whatever it's worth, I just put that out there.
And well, let me tell you that you should be staying busy right now, Lyle. There's a lot of people want to navigate their way through this.
Yeah, I have to sleep once in a while, so it's been fun.
Well, between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., that's a good rest period.
If I'm not in Ireland. You know.
If you're not in Ireland.
and I can't even get there, so that's another story.
Well, there's that too. So not quite sure how long your application is going to take. Let me tell you, there's been a bombardment of it. You've probably seen that the government is looking to add another $250 billion to the PPP program. So they're going to take it up to $600 billion as soon as the Republicans and the Democrats can agree on that. So, you know, I'm not trying to politicize this. It's there's always got to be a little fighting before something like this takes place. But there's going to be more money put into it. $90 billion in the first 3 days was distributed. So it's moving out pretty fast. You can apply right now. Again, the best place for you to start is whoever you're banking with as a business right now. But again, I've got links to not only the SBA that'll give you every SBA lender in the state and in the country, but we've got some added banks that I'm going to talk about in just a second. Some of the online banks that you can also get your application into, or you can talk to Lyle Pearson, and Lyle will be able to help you navigate through all that. So once again, here's a link in the documents that are available to everybody of the SBA. It will help you with finding the lender that you're looking for. I've made another note on this slide where payroll cost means, because this has been confusing to a lot of people, and hopefully I'm clearing that up. Wages, tips, paid time off, so PTO is part of the calculation. Separation pay, if you've given somebody severance pay to leave, that can be included in this. Group health, retirement, your state and local taxes, employees up to $100,000, including yourself, including sole proprietors, including subcontractors. Hot off the wire, this just came across late yesterday afternoon, early this morning. This is the additional group of lenders that are now out there. A whole big long list of people like PayPal and Cabbage, and those guys are now approved to distribute these funds. They're trying to get these loans processed as quickly as they can and the money out. And I love what the government's doing to try to get this out there. And so they've opened up portals through the SBA, not only the SBA, but non-SBA lenders for you all to get access to it. Now, I can tell you, I've got 2 clients that applied through PayPal. What's today? Friday. Both did it last night. They got back within 2 hours, signed documents, just waiting for their signature on the application. It wasn't an approval letter, but that's how quickly PayPal was processing these loans and getting them back for signature. So, and then another $100 billion been set aside for these online banks to distribute through the PPP program. And so these are my 2 success stories. One business owner with 20 employees and $2.5 million in revenue. He applied it as regional bank on Friday, was approved on Sunday. He tells me he doesn't have the funds yet. Not sure of the timeline, but the approval went through pretty quickly. Another one, a few weeks ago, he had called PayPal and asked them if they were doing this PPP program. They didn't know at that time. Today, PayPal reached out to him and he got a call from PayPal saying, "Hey, you still interested in a PPP loan?" And he had told them, "Hey, I'd already applied through another bank." And they said, "That's okay. Here's the form, fill it out, and let's get you approved." He signed the docs the same day. So there's a lot of good stuff going on out there. Here's a few other, so let me just go back through the PPP. Low interest rate, forgivable, all expenses from payroll to overhead can be included. And the beauty of it, as long as you're spending that money for the right things, keeping your head count, like Tony reminded us, 75% needs to be payroll cost as part of the PPP. That loan all goes away. It gets forgiven, and it gets forgiven this year. Remember, the payments are deferred for 6 months anyway. You may never have to make a payment on this loan and keep your employees up and running with you, which would be just incredible if you'd be able to achieve that. So a few other benefits of the CARES Act. You get CARES Act gave you a $5,000 refundable tax credit for retaining employees. So if you get the loan, you retain your employees, not only do you get a forgivable loan, you get a $5,000 tax credit for hanging on to your employees. And so it's 50% of up to $100,000 or $10,000 in wages if you're fully or partially suspended due to orders from the government, from the COVID-19. And so 50% of your gross receipts, you get a credit for. Another nice thing is your deduction for interest on your taxes goes from 30% deduction to 50% of the interest. So you're getting a little bump there, a little benefit there. And we just, the government just wants to improve your liquidity. Cash is king. As I'm advising my clients, hang on to cash right now. We've got to find the bills that don't have to be paid. We're going to have to put those off if you're in that kind of cash position. Let's wait for these funds to come in. Let's take care of our overhead, our employees first, and then we'll worry about some of these other vendors out there. It's $454 billion in emergency lending. So there's lots of money out there. Let's go get ours. I've talked about reducing the forgiveness, so we have to be aware of this, have to be careful about this. You got to keep 90% of your employees. And any business can apply for these loans as long as they fall under the SBA standards. You've got alternative financing now that's available to you through the online banks. Another nice thing is net operating losses under this CARES Act. You can carry back 5 years now. That was kind of a screw up on the 2017 tax bill. So they fixed that. And you can delay your, be able to delay the payment of your 2020 taxes until 2021 and 2022. So that doesn't mean you don't pay your taxes, it's just deferred. So $357 billion in loans for small businesses, up to $10 million per business. Payroll, rent, related expenses can go into that. You got debt forgiveness. $17 billion is allocated for the SBA for existing loans to potentially be forgiven. Another $10 billion for SBA emergency grants, those $10,000 emergency grants, which will give you a quick infusion of cash to keep things going around the business there. Now I've got a quick little infograph here to compare the two programs. The one on the left is the Paycheck Protection Program. The one on the right is the EIDL program. So let's talk about payroll protection. You got payroll, you got debt applications, you got employees, you got salaries, you got mortgage and interest, you got rent is all part of the PPP calculations. 2.5 times the business's average monthly payroll is the calculation to come up with the loan. It's fixed at 4%, regardless of your business. So even a nonprofit is going to be at 4%. There's no payments for 6 to 12 months. It's a 10-year term. And for forgiveness, 100% can be forgiven as long as you meet the obligations. Under the EIDL, similar uses of those funds: payroll, fixed debts, accounts payable, other expenses can be paid because of the disaster impact. So it's a little more flexible on where you're going to spend that money, but remember, this one's not going to be forgiven. It's up to $2 million. Very low interest rates at 3.75 as a for-profit business, 2.75 for a nonprofit. Amortized over 30 years, so it's a long mortgage on this, and 0% is forgiven. This is a loan. This is a long-term loan. I've got another question here. Let's see what we got. Okay, so this is Amari. Should you get the loan 10 years PPP or 30 years EIDL, any penalty on paying off the loan early? No, sir. None at all. None at all. Good question. Now, let's talk about where you all can start. As I've said multiple times before, I'll say it again, start with your own bank. Almost everybody I've talked to, and I've talked to dozens, they've gone to other banks before they've gone to their bank, and every single time the second bank that they went to that wasn't their bank said, hey, you're better off. We're taking care of our customers first. You're better off going to where you're already doing business. So, if you're doing business with BOA, start there. I can tell you that Wells Fargo's already stopped. I haven't seen any update. They stopped processing these loans within the first couple days. So if your business bank is Wells Fargo, just go someplace else, because they're not processing any of these loan applications right now, as far as I know. every other bank, major bank, national bank, who has an SBA arm is processing these loans. They're all accepting applications. And I've given you links to additional resources for these funds in these documents. So you can look up any SBA lender in America from this link. I've also included the links to all the online banks. So you got PayPal, you got Biz2Credit, Divvy, Cabbage, Fundera, Lendio, NAV, Ready Capital, Beam. Those are all now approved to take applications and they get these funds to businesses. Now, if you know anything about these lenders, they typically they loan at very high interest rates over are very disagreeable kind of terms. That's not the case for this PPP. It's 4% interest. It's the same terms of amortization that I talked about. They're going to make a little money off a lot of loans. They're hoping is the reason why they're participating, and the government's allowing them to do that to get these funds out. So I know of two people, like I shared earlier, that went to PayPal and the thing got moving very quickly within hours. So don't know that that's going to be the case now. That was last night. This thing is very dynamic at this point. Don't sit on the sidelines. Get moving. Again, in the docs, all kinds of links for you to get going. Don't forget Lyle. I'll send that contact information out to everybody. But I want to stop the presentation just for a second and give you a couple quotes. The first comes from somebody I've admired, and I'm sure you all have for a very long time, and that was Stephen Covey. And one of his quotes is, and I love this one, and I've used it many times before, if there's one thing that's certain in business is it's uncertainty. And we are certainly in very uncertain times right now. And I don't have a crystal ball, nor do you. Don't know how this thing's going to work out. I do know we're all going to be better off. In some way, we're going to have lessons learned that are going to make us better operators, better business owners, better managers, better leaders at the end of all this. And this uncertainty builds character. So embrace it, and deal with it in the right sort of ways. But let's go to Lee Iacocca's quote, which he said this back in the 80s. And from this, we got the K car, one of the worst cars ever built. But Lee Iacocca was not going to let Chrysler go bankrupt. And so he said to his team, what do we do? Anything? Something? So as long as we don't just sit here, if we screw it up, start over, try something else. If we wait until we're satisfied of all the uncertainties, it may be too late. So all the answers, this is moving fast. We don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers at this point. They're changing the answers almost by the hour right now. Get off the sideline, go make something happen for yourselves, folks, because it's never going to be clear, not for weeks to come, and it may be way too late. So go do what you need to do to get access to this infusion of capital. I got to tell you, when you have cash in the bank, and listen, as a business owner myself, I know how this works. If you got cash in the bank, you make better decisions. If you're struggling with cash flow, you make very bad decisions. You make rash decisions. And some of those decisions can be the death kill for your business. So just do what you can to get cash into your operation. Do what you can to reserve cash for your operation. It may feel uncomfortable right now trying to collect on your accounts receivables. Your clients are probably going through the same issues you are, but a friendly phone call, whatever you can do to get cash into your business. You got to be careful how you have those conversations. You want to make sure that client continues to do business with you, but anything you can, negotiate those ARs to get a few bucks in, 50%, 20%, get cash into your business. Negotiate with your landlord. I'm advising folks, don't pay your rent. Call your landlord up and say, hey, I'm going to pay you. I'm just not going to pay you right now. Let's find where we can cut. This is a great time to go through your P&L and find the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. And let's get rid of the nice-to-haves. Get yourself leaner for a period of time. You can go back and pick up some of these other things, but it's a great time to look at your processes, get smarter about how you operate every day, be able to take care of your employees, take care of yourselves. But I got to tell you, every recession I've been through in my 45 years of business experience, we've come out better on the other side. And I can tell you, one of my last corporate life in 2008, our business dropped 30%. The next month it dropped 40%. Next month it dropped to 50%. And what we did was, we cut out non-essentials. We found waste in the organization. We found departments that weren't necessary because we were a growing organization for a period of time. We weren't going to grow. So real estate department went away. The construction department went away. Managers in training went away. But what we really did and where we really came out of this way smarter as a company is we looked at our processes and we looked for ways that we could remove steps, we could cut cost and improve quality. Cut cost on negotiating our supplies, our equipment, negotiating processes with the folks that were producing the cars for us. We found $50 here, we found $100 here, we found $1,000 there, and in the end, it really added up to the point where in 2008, year-end 2008, which is actually because the fiscal year ended in March of 2009, that year to the date of that company's history, during the recession was the most profitable year we'd ever had as an organization. So there can be light at the end of this, and you will come out of this scarred. You may come out of this hurt. You may come out of this smaller, but you're going to come out smarter. And that's the fortunate and the unfortunate part of what we're going through right now. So again, I'm not a financial professional. I'm a business coach. I'm a business advisor. I help dozens and dozens of businesses navigate the challenges of running a business. I use my experience, my tools, my resources to be able to help out businesses. I'm not charging anybody anything right now. If you want advice, you want some consulting, you want to talk through your situation one-on-one with me, call me. No charge. I'm not charging anybody for the next 90 days for anything. So give me a call, 714-421-6498. This is my time to give back to the business community that's been very good to me. If you want to email me, my email is vaughn@rdltraining.com. And also in these docs that you have available to you are links to my websites. Please come visit them. You may find some tools that you might be interested in. So thank you all very, very much. Let me just pause for a second. Are there any last questions anybody want to ask? Just hit that chat button. You're very welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Vaughn. Thanks so much.
Have a very nice weekend.
Good night.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? One more. John, thank you, John. I hope this helped. I felt myself being confused by all this, and I finally just dove into it and tried to figure it out. From I'm a product of the North Carolina public school system. I got to keep things simple, and I tried to simplify it all, and hopefully I helped you guys out. But you're welcome, Steve. Thanks for joining, my friend. Keep up the good work out there, folks.
It was very good. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you very, very much. You have a great weekend too, John. Appreciate it.
Anybody can help any with myself. This is Lyle. Thank you.
Okay, Lyle, I've got your information. I'll share that.
Okay. And anything I can help with.
Okay. Stay safe. Stay well.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers to you.
Bye-bye.
I'll send a recording out right after this. Absolutely, sir. Steve, it'll be out as soon as I can program it and turn it into a link for you. If you receive the $10,000 loan, will it affect your PPP application? No, sir, absolutely not. Omar, don't have to worry about that. That $10,000 emergency grant is what I'm thinking you're talking about. That's going to get forgiven. It's going to be put into your PPP, but it's going to be forgiven as long as you meet the obligations. Yeah, that's the grant. The grant goes away. The grant's forgivable regardless. Oh, don't worry about that, Steve. Sorry about that. Have a good weekend. All right, I'm signing off. Thanks, everybody. It was really great to have the opportunity with you.